The world's perception of India is shifting. Once seen as an emerging player, today we are a global force driving economic growth, innovation, and diplomacy. The world isn't just noticing India, it's engaging with us, investing in us, and recognizing our leadership in shaping the future. We all know how media plays a pivotal role in shaping narratives and influencing perceptions. Today, I look forward to discussing how media serves as a bridge between diplomacy and economic growth. We have some pertinent questions to answer. How does India's public diplomacy shape global partnerships? What role does strategic communication play in advancing our economic ambitions? And many such questions. With Sansad TV at the forefront of insightful policy discussions, this episode promises to be a compelling exchange on India's evolving global narrative. I have with me today the Secretary of Rajya Sabha Secretariat and the CEO of Sansad TV, Mr. Rajit Punhani, who started his career in the Bihar cadre and has also worked with state and federal organizations such as NTPC, Power Grid Corporation of India, and many international organizations, namely the European Union and the International Labour Organization as a representative. Welcome, sir, to the episode. My very first question to you is, you have contributed immensely to shaping public policy perceptions and governance. You started your career by working not just in the administrative service, but you've had your education right from St. Stephen's College to IIM Bangalore, and then you eventually ventured into the IAS. So if you can tell us about your journey and what inspired you to come and serve for the public.
Well, I'll begin with, contrary to popular perceptions, whether it be St. Stephen's College or the Institute of Management, they're not elitist organizations. In fact, they kind of ground you, because most of the people there come from good academic backgrounds, and they are competent in their own way. So you get to compete with a lot of people who are very well with very well-rounded personalities. So it grounds you. It kind of, you feel humbled, because you can see that there are many people in many aspects who are better than you, and also it makes you strive to push boundaries and try to do more. So these organizations, these institutions kind of mold you to take up any challenging tasks that you may face. So while I was in college, there were a lot of my friends who were from Bihar and from the hinterland, North Indian hinterland, who were also sitting for the exam, and they had a lot of dreams, So while I was, while we interacted, so I felt that this is one profession which gives you a kind of exposure which no other profession gives you, and that kind of drove me to the IAS. And so while in fact I was at IIM Bangalore, I gave my first attempt and I got the IRS, and then after passing out I gave my second attempt and got the IAS and was allotted Bihar cadre, which was also a fascinating experience and a very good learning experience, especially in the 1990s, where we served in the field, because at that time a lot of things were changing in India, and both on the social side and on the economic side. While on the economic side was the economic liberalization, on the social side was also the rise of the backward classes, politically and socially. So it was very interesting to see how this took place in a very important part of India.
Great. In fact, if you now look at where you are at Sansad TV, right? How do you see Sansad TV contribute to public policy and governance decisions that we see on a regular basis? How do we, as public, if you were to tell us how is the Sansad TV contributing in these shaping of perceptions and the global narratives that are being formed on a daily basis?
Another thing which is not realized, which is so important, and that's why I personally believe that India, I think, is the strongest democracy in the world. The live proceedings of Parliament are telecast on Sansad TV, and this is absolutely live with no kind of editing. There are portions which, because the presiding officer, as per our rules, the presiding officer has the power to expunge remarks which are unparliamentary or which are made without permission of the chair. But when it comes to live proceedings, many times these are visible to the public. So this kind of transparency is rarely seen anywhere, and it kind of gives you the perception of how willing the political establishment is willing to open themselves to the public. So it's a very big and a very crucial part of democracy, and in the last so many years we have seen our democracy getting stronger and stronger. So Sansad TV, I think, has played a very big role in this. Besides that, we also have we cover aspects which range from tourism to national security, and from economic policy to international relations. And if you see our discussions, they are moderated, they are allowed to express their views in a very logical, reasonable manner, and it is not the kind of shouting or one-upmanship one sees on many other TV channels. So that is why a lot of the civil service aspirants watch our channel. We have now on YouTube almost 9 million subscribers, and a lot of them are young people who are aspiring to join the government or join public service in many ways, and they watch our discussions with a great deal of interest.
Absolutely. In fact, if I were to just add, effective communication plays a real crucial role in the entire process. So how does effective communication influence diplomatic and economic narratives?
So nowadays, I would say social media plays such an important role. So we are now at Sansad TV, we have now, besides as I told you earlier, we have 9 million subscribers on YouTube, but we also telecast, and all our programs are now available in 10 different languages. Besides that, we are on Twitter, and now we have recently come on to Instagram, because that is where the youth is. So now we also have our reels on Insta. So social media has become such an important medium nowadays, and lot of the narratives are in fact galvanized or channelized through social media. So our emphasis also is to go on social media, and we see, and there's that freedom to comment or to give feedback, and we see that a lot of, for example, speeches, the budget speech, for example, or any other speech regarding criminal amendment laws, or various speeches of relating to our relations with other countries. These have been broadcast live on Sansad TV, and we have a lot of feedback which comes onto our social media feed, and this I think gives the political leadership a lot of idea of what the common man, especially the youth, what are their views on various policies, and I think this makes a big difference.
Absolutely. In fact, when we look at the international image of India, right, people say India has a voice. So if you were to tell me what kind of perception does the world hold of us, I'm sure when the world looks at India now, I mean, they see it from a different lens altogether. They see India means business. India stands for a very strong and a vibrant democracy. So what role does media in today's time play in shaping the international image of us as a country?
So, so our media, if you see, especially now with social media, because now social media has become one of the major mediums of communication. So that which is available globally. Another thing about social media is that unlike in the olden times when you had a TV channel and it was available only to a restricted audience, social media is available to everyone across the globe. And we have our Indian diaspora across the world. Also, we have Indians people of Indian origin in extremely important positions again across the world. And so when we project a very realistic image of India, a credible image, which we do on our channel, is so when people watch it, they have this perception that this is credible, this is real, and we do not exaggerate, or we do not kind of project it in a manner which is not realistic. So now people have recognized, and obviously with travel, they have recognized that now India is a force to reckon with. We are now the third largest economy in all practical terms. So it's a voice which cannot be ignored, and especially nowadays, given the global conflicts, India now stands out as a mediator, or as a country which has never gone to war by itself, as has been very famously said, is that this is not an age of expansionism. It's an age for development, economic development, and upliftment of the common man. So that is where now people see that in India, the political leadership is focused on the welfare of the common man, and so that gets a lot of respect in various countries, not only amongst policymakers but amongst the common man, common people.
Absolutely. Tell me more about your international experience. I mean, you've represented, in EU as well as in ILO. So how did that happen? And if you can tell me also, what leadership lessons can today's business students derive from, managing large public organizations?
No, I was posted in the Indian Embassy, so I was there as a government representative. But what I studied a lot of the European Union, and you can see that it's not very long ago. 75 years is nothing in world history. 75 years ago, there were countries which are at war, who were killing each other, and now they have formed a union, an economic union and a monetary union, in which there's free movement of goods, and there's free movement of people, and there's the tax system is harmonized, and the fiscal and monetary policies are all harmonized. So 70 years ago, it could not be imagined that two countries which were at war with each other have now come together in almost every sphere. So there, so it's a fascinating thing to study, and India also, you look at it, the diversity in our country, whether it is any issue, be it language or other classes or anything, is that we are diverse in very various ways, but yet we as a nation we are together, and a large nation. We are now the largest population in the whole world. So So then when in European Union, it's very interesting to study how they decide, because now all the member countries, they come together. They're different countries, they're sovereign countries. So they come together and then they sit at the table, and most of the decisions, or all the decisions, have to be taken by consensus. So it's a complex negotiation process which takes place. So it was very interesting to study it and see how the negotiation takes place amongst these member countries, sovereign member countries. Some of those countries were, I mean, even before the collapse of the Berlin Wall, they were again at loggerheads, and now they are sitting on the same table. So, so that's a lot of thing to learn in terms of negotiation, in terms of leadership, because leadership also is basically a negotiation of various diverse and maybe conflicting interests. So, this was one experience which I really cherish, and I learnt a lot.
Yeah. No, I think there's lots that we can learn from, your experience, the kind of work that you have done, working in large organizations. In fact, you have on a day-to-day basis also interacted with startups and a lot of business enterprises, be it the ones who are directly linked with the government or in some form working with the government. So, I just wanted to understand, and for the interest of the audience who will watch this episode, how does decision making and stakeholder management differ in, a public sector versus a private sector organization?
I would say public sector is much more difficult. People, have a lot of complaints against political leaders, but my experience in the Rajya Sabha and Sansad TV and interacting with so many political leaders, it's the most difficult job. And that is why I think many people hesitate to enter politics, because it's a very difficult job, because they have to manage various stakeholders who might be having conflicting interests, and every 5 years they have to go back to those stakeholders or their voters and again win the next election. So it is one of the most difficult jobs to manage. So because the conflicting there are so many conflicting stakeholders with conflicting interests, to manage all that complexity is something which is extremely difficult, and to satisfy all is another challenge in itself. So then you have to, after all, take a decision. There will definitely be some people who will be unhappy with that. So whether you take a decision, whether you see at the majority, like many times you took a decision with them, like you see which is the majority, or sometimes you take a decision seeing what is good in the interest of the country or the interest of the state or the interest of your constituency. So the decision making is much more complex and much more difficult. I have not really worked for a long time in the private sector. I've had short experiences, but I've had in, for example, public sector undertakings. So there one has systems. So one has clear-cut objectives. Like in the private sector, it is to the main aim is to maximize your profits. But they also have a lot of conflicting interests, because you have shareholders on one hand, then you have government policies on the other hand, you have regulatory authorities. So there also there are many interests that one has to manage, but maybe it is not the number of people involved is not so large. So so maybe it is more easy. But when I talk to my friends in the corporate sector, they also have and deal with a lot of pressures, and they also there's a hire and fire. So the stakes are much higher. But again, with the political leaders, again the stakes are very high, because after 5 years you have to go to the people again. So that way bureaucrats, I would say, are much more comfortable compared to others.
But do you still find that same energy that people would rather want always coming to the office in the public organizations? I mean, take for example, when a new startup is born, the people who are working in the organization come with a different enthu and energy every single day. So does that also happen when people come to the office and work in a public sector organization?
See, startups are different because there you are working for yourself. Like, when some corporate leaders talked about working 70 hours or 90 hours, a week, many of the young people who go to work, they say that, okay, if we also earn so much, or if we also have such a big share in the profits, then maybe we will also work so much. So a startup is working for himself, and human nature is that if you work, the incentive is more, then you tend to work harder. But I've seen people in the government, especially, both on the political side and on the bureaucratic side, who work extremely hard, and it's driven from inside. It's not that you have a great incentive or you're getting a lot for yourself, but it's a passion. So similarly, I maybe in the corporate sector, I wouldn't say startups is a maybe a good comparative example, because startups you are working for yourself, so there's a big incentive. But there are many people corporate sector who get a fixed salary, but yet they are passionate about their work, and they work 24/7.
Yeah. If I just ask one question which is related to, because there's in the interest of a lot of people in the society who are looking to expand their businesses outside of India, since you have worked with and also contributed in organizations such as EU and ILO, how easy or difficult it is to expand your businesses outside of India, and also keeping in mind that you need to keep the interests of all the stakeholders aligned, whether be it the government or the intermediaries and the other channels involved.
So Europe, I also found, was a little bureaucratic. We in India we complain, but in Europe also they have their bureaucracy. But then some countries have done very well. For example, Singapore, a company can get registered and so easily, and the systems are much more smooth for business, and the bureaucracy is there, very much there, but the common man does not even realize. So while expanding your business, there are countries which are more bureaucratic than others, but one has to go through the process, and I think one should not be impatient about it, whether it's in India or when there's a process. But if you follow the process, this process that I've seen, at least in Europe, if you follow the process, then it will be done. It might take longer than what you desire, but it will be definitely done. There's more certainty. There's that certainty that if I follow the process and if I tick the boxes correctly, my business will be expanded. I can manage the way through.
Absolutely. In fact, if you look at the art of negotiation, right, in today's businesses is also very important. Whether you are in a business ecosystem or you are in a government setup, or maybe if you are a diplomat representing a country, negotiations are critical. So my question to you, Rajit ji, today is, how can business leaders navigate international negotiations and cross-border collaborations? Say, if India wants to work along with, say, major economies in Europe, whether be it France or Spain or Germany, I'm sure with the kind of work that the countries are working on, whether be it India and France or India and Germany and so on and so forth, how easier it is to look at negotiating with organizations across?
So our embassies are quite, I would say, strengthened on the economic front also. There has been emphasis by the government that it is not only political diplomacy, there must the embassies must be involved in economic diplomacy, and there are many diplomats who focus, or whose main job is to focus on economic diplomacy. So, the first thing which any economic diplomat has to look at is what are the local rules. It's very important to understand the process, whether even and vice versa. It's like, if any foreign company wants to invest in India or wants to do business in India, one has to understand, one is the government policy, the government processes, which includes your rules and regulations, and the culture of the place. These are, I think, three aspects which any business leader would need to understand and then go forward. There are uncertainties. Business is also, a very difficult profession. I agree. Like politics, as I mentioned earlier, business is very difficult job to do, because there are so many uncertainties. So, whether you may have followed the process or may have followed the plan that you made, or followed the strategy that you formulated, but there are so many external factors, like one can see today in the global scenario. There are so many external factors which you may not have been able to predict. So while on one hand you have to understand the processes and the culture, on the other hand you have to hedge against the risks. And I think that is another important, especially in today's scenario, where this question of tariffs, or question of inward looking, and you're appealing to the domestic stakeholders is more. One has to hedge against any untoward risks which may come across.
No, very well said. If you look at business education today, right, not every institution looks at integrating policy and diplomacy, though it is very important in today's scheme of things, the environment that we are living in. So, how can business schools integrate the understanding of diplomacy to be able to create a more globally competent workforce?
I was once on the interview board when we were taking admissions for the Indian Institute of Management, Bangalore. And what I could see, that's why I keep on telling a lot of youngsters whom I meet that why Sansad TV or studying for the civil service exam, UPSC, even if you don't get through, we once did a conclave on beyond what beyond UPSC, because UPSC also it's a 0.001% chance of getting through. So then what do you do? But I would say, even if you study 1 or 2 years for these exams, it gives you such a broad vision of all aspects of the world, whether it be economic, social, political, which I think is very important for anyone. And therefore, in this interview board, I could make out the people who had some background. They were able to come across as their understanding of business or of the questions that we posed to them was much better. Similarly, I have seen a lot of people who have not cleared the UPSC, but have gone into the private sector or started their own businesses, and they have done extremely well. Because I believe that if you're whatever profession you do, you must be generally aware of all scenarios, whether it's the political scenario or the economic scenario or the social scenario. Social scenario is as important. You must know what is the culture of the place, what is the socio-economic background of your stakeholders. So these are important aspects which I think one should look at.
Oh, very well said. In fact, I would love to have more of this conversation with you. And but my last question to you, Rajit ji, today would be your top 3 advice that you would like to give to the MBA students and broadly for the business world.
One is that you must read a lot, and read whatever you come across, whether it's on WhatsApp. There is no harm in reading WhatsApp forwards also, as long as you are aware of what is fake and what is not fake. So that is one aspect. I think you should read a lot so that you are aware of everything, not only of your particular subject or your particular business or particular aspect that you want to go into, be it marketing or finance or HR. Second is that technology, I think, is it's something which we cannot wish away. AI is here to stay, and it's something that one should be aware of, and how you can use it to your best advantage. So that is something which you must know, and you must also be able to, I think, read as much as you can on what is the possible impact of AI, not only again on your field of study or your field of business, but also on the world at large, the political economy, and the social, after all we live in a society, and the social, what do I say, consequences of that. These I would say are the most important, and rest is that you try and do something you are passionate about, which may not always be easy. If you have that choice to do something that you like to do. It's not easy, because many times the circumstances are such. It could be your own circumstances or your family circumstances or your community circumstances, where you may be may have to do something that you may not want, that may not be your first choice, but maybe in due course that should be at the back of your mind, that ultimately you live only once, so you should do what you like to do.
Absolutely. In fact, I totally agree with all the points that you mentioned. Reading and especially believing in the fact that AI and the emerging technology that we are seeing today, and with every second, right, there's something new that is coming up, right? So embracing technology, understanding that, we cannot look at replacing technology, but at the same time looking at enabling the kind of work that we do on a regular basis with the assisted artificial intelligence. So I see it that way, but yes, with all the areas that you mentioned, I believe the people who would be watching this episode, be it the business students, be it the ones who are taking decision to even join a business management education, and the entire fraternity, be it their parents and the support and the faculty and the student staff. So I think it's interesting with all that you have mentioned. Thank you so much, Rajit ji, for this wonderful conversation, and I would love to have more of this conversation with you in future. With that, we have come to the end of the episode. I hope you enjoyed as much as I did having this conversation with Rajit ji. I look forward to seeing you again with another such episode sometime soon. You take care. I'll be back. Thank you.